This is the agenda for tonight's session on VoteBuilder 201. So I'll do a real quick overview of VoteBuilder. Then the skills we will be looking at is how to add users to your VoteBuilder account, some list and targeting suggestions, downloading or exporting lists. I've got some updates that I'll share tonight about how to, as we get closer to election day, how to remove people from your list who have already voted, which helps make you more efficient, and how to see results. And particularly if you are a candidate or if you're helping candidates, how you can see what their support is looking like. So jumping into our Vote Builder overview, I share this in every training. These are my tips for working with Vote Builder. Like I said, it is very powerful. It is kind of kludged together. It's a mishmash. It's been built and evolved since at least the Obama years. So it does, if you don't catch it all in 1 hour, that's not you, that's Vote Builder. It does take a little patience, some practice, and experimentation. I have been using Vote Builder for 6 or 7 years and I'm still learning things all the time. And Vote Builder changes stuff on occasion. So the more you use VoteBuilder, I find the more I use it, it gets easier and faster. There's also more than one way to do things in VoteBuilder. So depending on what kind of information you're trying to get from it, you can take a couple different paths. I'll show you how I get there. And you generally can't break it. You would have to work pretty hard to break it. So feel free to experiment and try some things. On the general VoteBuilder front, these are questions that I get on occasion around how often the data in VoteBuilder is updated. So the voter roll, which is the My Voters portion of VoteBuilder, that data comes from the State Board of Elections. And we get roughly monthly updates of that data. So as new people change their voter registration, register, move, all of those things, that is updated about monthly. It does get updated more often as we get closer to election day. In particular, next year, 2026 will be a very big year. We'll probably see some more regular updates next year than this year. There are models that you can use as shortcuts to pull together a list of people that you want to talk to. Next year, we'll probably get support from the DNC, the National Organization on Modeling. So this is doing data analytics work to help us target people based on their characteristics. This year, oh, hey, I had a question mark on this, and we've since delivered that. So we were hoping to do models for municipal elections. Harmon did, in fact, get that rolled out to everyone. And I think I have screenshots of what those models look like for this year's municipal races. Then there's all the data that you all, that volunteers are collecting on a regular basis. So from phone banking, from canvassing, from volunteers signing up for events on Mobilize, all of that is really updated pretty much immediately. So, of course, if you're canvassing, the data needs to be synced back to VoteBuilder. But the information that we are all putting in here about our conversations with voters and volunteers, that's updated very quickly. I'm going to keep moving here into how to add users. And Harmon will flag for me if any of these permission levels have been adjusted over the course of the year. This is what it was last time I delivered it. So depending on the permission level you have in VoteBuilder, you have certain features and capabilities. Harmon says this does in fact still look accurate. Good. So if you are someone creating accounts for someone else, the first thing to know is you cannot give anybody greater access than you yourself have. So let's look at these levels here. Level one is really for first-time brand new volunteer who doesn't need to be really working in the back end of the data, but will in fact be minivan, using virtual phone banks. And so that's level one access to VoteBuilder. It's quite limited. Level two access, this is more standard volunteers who need to be able to look people up. Quick lookup lets you look up individuals or to create lists, and lists pull people who have the same criteria that you can use then to set up phone banks or canvases. So that is a skill you can do at level two. Level three, you've got some more options here to cut turf, to do some data exporting, some more data analysis capabilities. Level four, this is, and Harmon will correct me if I'm wrong, I think county chairs and vote builder administrators for counties are usually level four. Is that right, Harmon?
Sometimes they can be level 5, but we have very limited level 5. And honestly, most county chairs do not need to be above a level 4.
Okay. So if you are here because you are your county's vote builder administrator or you're a county party chair, you're probably level four. So that gives you some more more capabilities to do some editing, to create activist codes and survey questions. We talked about those in a previous session and how those are used. You generally don't need to create a lot of those, but what's more important is that if you're level four, you can give somebody else level three access so that they can cut turf and things like that. Level five, I don't know if I have level five access. I don't know, maybe. The new capability there is bulk uploading, which again is probably not something you're doing very often. If you're at level four, that's a really good spot for you to be at because I think most users are probably at a level three. So if you're a level four, you can create level three users. And here are the steps for adding a user. So you can see this screenshot here. I cropped it weird. It's probably in my voters. On the left-hand side in the navigation towards the very bottom in the administrative menu, you can see there is a yellow box around where it says users. So click on that. And then this is the new user setting page. In the upper right-hand corner is add new user. This would be to add somebody from scratch. Otherwise, you could look somebody up who already has access using that search screen. But we're going to add a new user and add their contact information first, first name, last name, email address. It's important to make sure that you're using this person's best preferred email address. That is where they will get their invitation to log into VoteBuilder. That will be the email that they use to log in. So make sure you're using an email address that they have given you recently. Then to set the user's account details, your committee will show up here where I have the red box. So in this example, it says North Carolina Democratic Party. Yours is going to say Stokes County Democrats or Buncombe County Dems, something like that. It will give you some suggested account names here in the yellow. You can use one of the default options or create a custom one. Then the third part here, these boxes in green, this is where you will indicate what permissions this user should have. And they could potentially have a different level of access in My Voter, which is the voter roll, versus My Campaign, which is your volunteer database. Maybe you have someone who's doing a lot of volunteer outreach work. They're not really interacting with voters. Maybe they only need access to My Campaign. It's a general principle of good data management practices to not give people more access than they really need. So, um, think about this here when you're giving this access. It's a drop-down menu. You will indicate what level of access they should have for my voter and what level of access for my campaign. Another best practice here in the blue box, excuse me, is to set an expiration date. This is just kind of, again, good data hygiene practices. I'm probably going to set somebody's expiration date for like December 1st. If somebody is getting access and they are the second vice chair and they're serving a 2-year term, I'll probably make sure their access lasts until their term is up in, a year, 2 years. Generally, it's okay to put that expiration to shortly after the election period. What I would do is, if you were the vote builder administrator for a county or you're a county party chair, add a calendar notice that says like December 1st, double check all the account permissions, account access, expirations. Because if somebody does still need to use it, for example, there is, I don't know what you're going to do in December. You need to pull a list to invite volunteers to your holiday party. If somebody needs access in that time period, when they go to log in, they won't be able to, and then they're going to reach out and be like, "What happened? I need my access." So get ahead of this, put it on your calendar, make this a part of your standard process when you are creating somebody's account. Is there a way to find out when our access expires? I don't know, actually. Harmon, can someone check their own expiration?
Yeah, so basically, I think you won't be able to see your own user, but if you're a county party member, essentially it expires December 31st, but then I continue them. And I'll basically send some housekeeping to the chairs in early December and give them a month to kind of get back to me. But you're basically going to expire every year in late December.
Thank you, Harmon. Okay, you're setting up this account. We've set an expiration date. Um, so assign the access. So this district type for most of you is probably going to be county level information. You could potentially give people precinct level access, but generally you can give access to the full county. And then the bottom right on this screenshot, you can either click the create user button and it'll be set up, or if you have multiple people that you're setting up at one time, you can hit create and add another. Um, I had a thought I wanted to share and it left my brain. Okay. Oh, I know. It was this slide. Invitations expire after 48 hours. So if you set somebody up and they don't get around to logging in for a week, they're not going to be able to. So it's a good idea to either tell people like if you're doing 5 new ones. I'm going to do it on Thursday. Make sure you get that email and log in before end of day Friday. Or if you're doing one at a time, I'm probably going to send a text or pick up the phone and say, I'm sending you the Vote Builder invite. You need to access it within 24 hours or it will expire. If some expire, then what you can do here on this screenshot is look up pending users. So there's a red box around this drop down in the search for pending user yes, and then refresh your results, and it will pull up anybody you have sent an invite to who has not yet activated it. And then you can resend the one that you were trying to send. There might be some real old ones in there. So you would probably ignore those. But if there's someone you're trying to give access to right then, that's how you would resend it. All right, I'm going to pause here. That was the process to add new users, and we talked about the different permission levels. I'll talk about some list ideas and targeting in the next section, but what questions do you have so far? Did anybody else sneak in here and you were intending to be in the registration repair Canvas training? Because if so, we'll give you the link for that event. Dorsey.
Christy, this really speaks to a problem I've been having recently about inviting folks, creating a user profile, inviting them, and then they, for whatever reason, they don't get to it. So they have 48 hours. I will send them a text and say, "Hey, I've just created this," and I give them, I say, "You need to get in right away."
Mhm.
But when they don't get in for whatever reason, where do I find that pending box so that I can go in there and resend them an invitation?
Yeah, that was in the users list. So when I said going all the way back here to the administrative menu, the users section, the screenshot I was just showing was this list. So that's the users menu. And then you would look towards the bottom in the middle. There's a column that says pending user, and you would
Okay,
select
I'll
yes.
look for that.
Okay.
And then if I just hit yes, will that automatically send them another invitation, or I have to do something in order to create that follow-up invitation?
Yeah, so when you select yes, then the blue button in the bottom right says refresh results. A list of anyone who has a pending invitation will show up towards the bottom of the screen. Select the person that you want, and then I think when you click their name, then there is a resend button. Harmon, is that right?
That is right. All you need to do is just select pending user to see all the pending users in any committees you have access to. So if you're a county chair, just your county. And then what you would do is just go into their user profile, their user account, just the hyperlink of their name, kind of like quick lookup. And then at the top, it'll say in big words, resend action ID invite. And I can show some examples if that will be helpful.
Yeah, or when we get to the end, if I have time, I can do a live screen share.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Yes. Question in the chat. Where do I find out what level I am? I'm not sure if you how to see your own level. I guess you could try to create a new account and see what level you could make them and know that you're one level higher. Harmon, is there a better way to see that? What level you are?
Yes, sorry, I was trying to find my end. Um, Basically, the only way to really do that is to just put your first and last name in users. If you have the ability to see users, which should be people who are level 3 and above, if I'm not mistaken. And then from there, you can just type in your name. You won't be able to go into your account, but there you should see in one of the columns my C profile and my V profile, which should be parallel. They should be the exact same, and you will be able to see your account level access.
Thank you. I'll try to demonstrate this user's menu when we have time to screen share. Okay, let's keep going on lists and targeting. So this is the screenshot of the targets, the modeling information that we pulled together this year for municipal races. This has now been cascaded to all candidate accounts this year and also to the county parties. So the bottom three listed here are 2025 Muni general targets, mobilization, persuasion, and base. Um, and let's see, here we go. This is how we define mobilization, persuasion, and base. I know that this is a little small to see. So what I want you to see is that the base here in the far right at the bottom, the information across the top is indicating someone's level of support for Democratic candidates. This is based on data modeling. It's a little bit more complex than I'm defining it, but basically, further to the right means someone's more likely to vote for Democratic candidates. Party registration plays a role in that data modeling, but it's not the only variable involved. So across the top, 0 to 90 plus, how likely we think someone is to vote for Democrats. And then top to bottom is how likely is someone to actually cast their ballot. So again, from 0 to 90 plus. So if you are a 90 plus support score, is what we would call this, and a 90 plus turnout score, Those are people we're confident are likely vote for Democratic candidates and will actually cast their ballot. So let me give you a slightly different view of this. So the base, those are the people with high support scores and high turnout scores. What we told candidates for 2025, these are good people to target early, in part because these people you should be asking them for more than just their vote. This is our base, right? Can they volunteer? Can they donate? Can they put up a yard sign? This base group is going to be someone you can make a lot of asks of them. Then let's talk about in the middle here, this persuasion group. So I'm going to go back one slide. Persuasion here is at the very bottom, meaning high likelihood to actually vote. And then when it comes to the Democratic support, which goes across horizontally, they're a little middle of the road. So these people are definitely going to vote. We need to talk to them and persuade them to vote for our candidates. Those are the persuasion targets. So for candidates this year, in some of the races, we thought they might have enough people in the base universe for them to win their elections, but not always. So the persuasion universe is another group to target, knocking and calling, and then assessing their level of support for our Democratic candidates. The final grouping we have here in these models, these targeting models, is what we call the mobilization universe. So on the horizontal, these are people who have a high likelihood of supporting Democrats, but they're kind of in the middle of the road in terms of do we think they're actually going to cast a ballot? These are people we want to mobilize to vote. If we can get them to the polls, they're likely to vote for our Democrats. So those are the three models: mobilization, persuasion, and base that are in my voters in VoteBuilder. Couple other ways to pull lists, particularly as we're getting closer to election day in most parts of the state. I know not everybody has municipal elections this year. This is a screenshot when I was inside a candidate's version of VoteBuilder. So if anybody here is a candidate, you probably have something that also says there's a survey question to gauge support for you. So in this case, the survey question was for, I think the candidate's first name is Beth. Beth Kennett. Can I count on your support? Beth could then pull a search that says, I want to know how many people I've already talked to between canvassing and phone banking. How many people have I talked to who have said that they strongly support or they're leaning support for my candidacy? This is helpful when you get to GOTV because when you look at those numbers, you might decide, I'm going to focus my efforts. There are enough people who have said they support me. I'm going to focus my efforts on making sure they get to the polls, perhaps. If it's not enough people, then you need to keep knocking doors and introducing yourselves. But this is a way that you can get a sense of how much progress you've made to date. Then, as we're getting closer to election day, you want to start removing people from your lists if they've already voted. Once early vote starts, there's no point sending a volunteer to talk to someone who's already cast their ballot. It's too late. So you can filter using the early voting section when you're creating a list. And what this says, here we go. I'm trying to mouse to it. Right now it says election municipal primary October 7th. So if you don't have a municipal primary on October 7th, and not a lot of parts of North Carolina do, shortly after October 7th, this will change to say election municipal general November 4th, 2025. So when early voting starts for the November 4th election, you want to start using this. And you can see I have a blue check mark here where it says exclude people who have early voted. Add that as criteria to your lists so you don't talk to people who've already cast a ballot. Couple other types of lists that I've talked to people about pulling or people have come to office hours to get help with. One of the things about phone banks is that you can target a little bit more narrowly. When you're canvassing, you kind of want to cast a little bit of a broader net because when you're walking from door to door, if you walk past a door, you've already kind of spent the energy walking. You might as well knock that door unless we know they're a strong Republican. So generally, we cast a little bit of a wider net with canvassing. But for phone banking, you can do more filtering depending on your candidate, depending on what ballot initiatives maybe you have next year in your community, depending on what you want to talk about. So you could pull a phone bank that is focused on calling women to talk about abortion rights. You could create a phone bank to talk to people under 40 and the script is about student loan forgiveness or the high cost of college education. Generally, you could pull a list for either phone banks or canvassing for people, say, over 65, if you're going to contact them in the daytime, kind of making this broad assumption that the older you are, the more likely you are to be retired. So those are some ways you could slice and dice your list. Also, of course, you can pull your list by precinct and maybe your precinct or your county. Some counties do a program where they send a postcard or a handwritten letter to people who are newly registered, who have switched their party affiliation, um, first-time voters, things like that. So those are a couple of suggested lists to think about pulling, particularly. These aren't so much lists for people who are running for municipals this year. But as you think about your long-term program, there are some suggestions for you. I will show you how to filter for someone who changed their party affiliation. Yep, add it to my list over here. What other questions do you have before we go on?
I have a quick question about the models.
Yes.
So I prepared a base list for one of my precinct captains, and they came back and said, wait, one of the people you have here is a 70-70 Democrat as a lifelong Republican. So I explained, because I know a good bit about AI models, that they're good on average, but on particular individuals, they can be way off. But it kind of they're way off in one direction for that person, way off in the opposite direction. So on the balance, it'll come okay. But is there anything else I should be saying? I know we've got this problem in North Carolina where you've got people that registered as Dems in 1957 and haven't updated, even though they're very hardcore red. And I don't know if that's something the model takes into account or if the models are nationwide and they don't recognize the Dixiecrat problem. But anything else I could say to them?
No, I think you're saying the right things, and I don't think um, I mean, the Dixiecrat problem is a thing, but that dynamic does also exist in other states, and it exists in the other way too. So I always talk about my grandmother, who is a lifelong Republican, but hasn't voted for a Republican since Hurricane Katrina and W abandoning the residents of New Orleans on the roof. So yes, you're right in that it is a likelihood, not necessarily a promise. It takes party registration into account, but that's not the only variable. So you will definitely have people on there who aren't Democrats. I know that this nuance is sometimes difficult for particularly new volunteers to catch on to right away or understand. It also takes into account like can we tell who that person has ever donated money to? And maybe they're Republican leaning, but they donated to Planned Parenthood once. And so that might inch them a little towards the bluer. Have they voted in partisan primaries? Sometimes people change their party registration to try to um, try to sway primaries, so that could play a role in it. So like a lot of data goes into it, and it isn't a promise, but it is a likelihood. So you were right about how you were explaining it. All right, I see a question in the chat. If we find mistakes, phone numbers, etc., who do we report it to? And I will show you because you, depending on your permission levels, you may be able to do that yourself. Okay, let's keep moving so I can do some screen sharing. This is a quick conversation, downloading or exporting lists. Your ability to download depends on your permission level, what you can download, and where you can download. Generally speaking, uh, downloading in my voters is more limited than in my campaigns because we would really strongly recommend that if you were looking to download a list to talk to voters, use Minivan for door knocking, use a virtual phone bank for phone calling. Over the years, more and more people get comfortable using those tools rather than printing out lists to dial numbers or knock on doors. Um, For my campaigns, I export a lot of email lists to send my post-training emails. I don't think you can export email lists from my voters, or if you can, it's not recommended because the quality of those email addresses is not really good. But you can, if you need an export that is not one of the types built into VoteBuilder that you have access to, then you will submit that as a request explaining what you're going to use that list for, why you need that capability. And that goes to Harmon so that he can thumbs up, thumbs down. If it's a thumbs down, he might reach out and say, here, try these other methods, or he might have another approach that would be helpful. That one slide is what I have on exporting. I'm going to stop the recording and then do screen share.